Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek, and happy Friday. Because you know what Friday means to me? Right, bro?
Hell yeah, it's Gaming Friday.
Gaming Friday, indeed. Best day of the week for me, a day after work week that I look forward to. Definitely enjoy the man cave and enjoy gaming. Now, before we get into the news stories, I just wanted to provide an update on a story I talked about yesterday, which had to do with the exoskeletons and paraplegics using those exoskeleton suits along with virtual reality and the findings. And at the time, in yesterday's video, I said, look, I didn't want to report it that way. Don't want to get up people's hopes. You guys have been great with feedback, great on comments. And that's why it's nice to update on this and see that come today, websites, and in particular NHS.UK, leading the charge on actually providing details. So it was nice to see that, yes, this is a peer-reviewed undertaking, right? There are experiments, there are, testing processes that other people can do to repeat to see if they come up with the same findings. And more importantly, it's a first step of probably many to come to see where they can take these findings, right? And again, more work has to be done, but it looks like they have a hypothesis that they can work with moving forward, which is awesome. Also, the institutions that undertook the study had some pretty good representation. University of Munich, which is a world-class institution for research. So that's good to see, and I will report back on that as further developments make themselves available. Now, in terms of the news, lots to talk about, guys, so I'm going to keep this moving along here, but the first order of business has to do with the HTC Vive changing up their starter bundle. Now, we know the three games were Tilt Brush, Job Simulator, and the other game was Fantastic Contraption. I always forget about that one because I've spent the least amount of time with that one. So what they're doing is they're retaining Tilt Brush, which if you ask me which of the three they should keep, I would agree. It would be Tilt Brush. And substituting the other two, it's Call of the Starseed, which is a fantastic Myst meets adventure game style game. It's kind of hard to peg, but it's refreshing to see an almost dead genre kind of get some new life breathed into it with VR. And I've said this so many times, but you may not like a genre pre-VR. Hell, you may still not like it post-VR, but give it a chance because there could be an opportunity in there for one of these games to show you that, you know what, maybe you should rethink that. This game is fun as hell. Play it, enjoy it. And that's happened to me quite a few times. The adventure game being a perfect example with Call of the Starseed, because I'd grown tired of conventional adventure games. They basically became pixel hunts, and I've talked about that in other videos, so it doesn't bear needing repeating here, but nice to see them mix up, and curious where Rift is going to go. Are they going to follow suit and change up their bundle? Lucky's and Eve Valkyrie, I believe, were the two in theirs. Am I missing one? Possibly. But anyways, good to see. The next story has to do with a company called Syber and Syber Gaming. They have a new line of virtual reality ready PCs. And I brought this up a few times in other videos as well, either talking about building your own PC, right? Or just mentioning the companies like Alienware, Falcon Northwest that are doing VR bundles. And these guys are really competitive. So what I did is I looked at the Syber M Core 100, and I will have, as always, the link in the description below. But check it out. Essentially, it has Windows 10 Home Edition, an i5 Skylake, right? It's a 6400, 8 gigabytes of DDR4, and an AMD RX 480. Now, there are other units that have 1080s, 1070s. That wasn't the point. The point of my exercise, I wanted to compare just going to, a Newegg or NCIX style website, how much that would cost to do yourself. And I was pleasantly surprised. The bundle is really aggressive. So you got to remember all the other stuff you get. You're getting the keyboard, you're getting the mouse, you're getting a case, right? You're having a lot of stuff integrated with the motherboard so that you don't have to purchase it again. So their price for that M series, and again, that's the Syber M Core 100, was or is $799 US. Now, when I spec those exact same components, I was coming, now granted, it's not completely apples to apples because my case may be a bit off, right? Because they're using a proprietary one, keyboard, mouse, those types of things, right? But the main core components, the operating system, the processor, the motherboard, the RAM, and most importantly, the GPU were all identical. And I was in the $900 range. So not only is it cheaper for those bundles, because I spot checked the 1080 as well, but you're possibly benefiting from a better warranty than if you were to pick the parts piecemeal. Now, I still maintain doing it yourself, doing it with a buddy it's just an awesome experience. You get to know what's inside, and a lot of the times you can make savings. But in this specific case, and lately with some of these other bundles, they're coming in pretty nice, pretty aggressive. And yeah, you're getting a lot of bang for the buck with those units to enjoy your VR. And that's the bottom line, right? Enjoy virtual reality gaming. So yeah, it was cool to see. And I'll have the link below. Do the same if you feel like it. Spec it out and see what you would come to compared to theirs. They list essentially all their parts, right? Now, the next story deals with some of the games. Just to give you an idea, at the Virtual Reality LA Expo that just concluded recently, there were a few games that were talked about as kind of rising above the rest. And this article comes from UploadVR. One of the games was called Awake. It's a first-person shooter. I'm not going to get into reviews on any of these games. I haven't even tried any of them. Just letting you know kind of what the variety is of the ones that they handpicked as being standout, right? So Awake was one of them. The second one was a game called Cosmic Trip. And what's neat about this one, what caught my attention, is that it's a first-person RTS, right? So first-person real-time strategy, which is kind of nice to see. I know it's not new. In fact, hell, you could go back to the Commodore 64 and Specky days and Amstrad for a game called Sentinel, which was essentially exactly that, first-person real-time strategy game, strategy puzzle, right? So that one is called Cosmic Trip. Then there's a game called Laser Type, which TYPE, and yes, as the name suggests, it's kind of like the Sega game, which was called Typing of the Dead, which was actually a series. So I don't know how much fun that can be. They said it rose above a lot of the other offerings, so maybe they put a great spin on it. But again, I mention it for you to check it out, something to look forward to. These are all more indie style titles. I didn't see any AAA mentioned, but we know that the AAA companies have stuff in the works, a few of which were mentioned, and I'm sure there's a few top secret projects in the pipeline as well. So, and then rounding out the 5 games, the next one was Inbound, and of course, being an older gamer, this one twigged me pretty good. Inbound is a spiritual successor to, right there's the Atari logo, Missile Command. So I want to check that out. That one definitely piqued my interest. And lastly, we have, personally, I think a little bit overdone, wave-based style survival game, a la Jurassic Park. So of course, mandatory T-Rex thrown dead center to market the game. So I'm a little bit out on that one, but like I said, I haven't tried it, so I'm going to do my own further research on these games and line up the types of games that I'll probably be buying as we move forward, right? For the different VR platforms. The next article deals with a trailer. So there's, surrounding the Olympics, there's some Olympic-themed gaming commercials / trailers. And one of them was from Sony dealing with the Sony PlayStation VR unit. And this thing looks cool. Again, in the description below, there's a link. But check out the video. So what it does is it shows elements of a game called Rigs, which is the Mechanized Combat League is the full title. And it's a mech game. And I don't really need to say more about that than it's a mech game. I personally love mech games. Huge fan of the Mech Warrior series. And bro, it was Shoujo, that other one we liked, right? Shoujo was the other mech style game? Shogo. Right. Shogo. Shogo was another mech game that was awesome at the time. And according to my buddy, still holds up fairly well. Or did you say it didn't hold up?
Oh, hell, I played it like 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. And it holds up fine, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. So to see that in VR is just going to be nice, right? To finally have a mech game, because I've always said the no-brainer for virtual reality is cockpit games, right? Anything that has you seated in a spaceship, car, hell, school bus is just right for VR exploitation, like all over the place. It's just such a natural fit. So yeah, check out that trailer. Let me know what your thoughts are. But I'll finish with saying the element that I liked the most, that intrigued me the most on that trailer, was the fact that it was multiplayer. So I really want to see how Sony pulls off the multiplayer aspect, because there's not a hell of a lot out there. And I know there's hover junkers, and my personal experience, and really, granted, I should have listened to you guys early on. You were trying to get me to go into hover junkers. I procrastinated for probably about the first 4-5 weeks. As you guys know, part of it was procrastination. Part of it was just being busy and not making the time, because I probably had it, but I didn't make it. In that I probably missed that first wave when there was a population playing the game, right? Because when I did finally get around to it, probably about 60-70% of the games, there were no players. I was waiting, sitting idle. It could be the hours too, but put it this way, I wasn't really able to enjoy it as a multiplayer experience like some of you did in telling me about the game, right? So Sony having a multiplayer game, awesome. And Sony having a multiplayer game, awesome for us, right? All these other virtual reality platforms stand to benefit. If this Mech Warrior style game does well, and it's got some unique stuff that it brings to the table, if you read up on it, then that's probably going to bode well for the Rift and the Vive and some of the other stuff. So, and even if it's more pulpy things for the Samsung Gear VR, right? Not necessarily a more simple game, but more streamlined experience, I think would be awesome for that device as well. So can't wait to try that mech game. That is going to be awesome. Now the next one, this was a bit of a facepalm one, a bit of a, oh man, they didn't go there, did they? Yeah, it qualifies as a doozy. So let's just have a little schlock here. Little schlock of the nectar. This one is from Ubisoft, and it has to do with the new South Park game, which we know what the name is. It's called South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Typical South Park play on words, right? But that's not it. Ubisoft took the whole South Park concept one step further, and they have made, especially for us VR enthusiasts, a Smello VR unit. And they call this thing, if I get the name here, I think it was Sensivus, yeah, was the name. Anyways, I'll have it in the link below. But basically, it's a device that you stick on your nose. Now, I don't know how tongue-in-cheek this is. This could be total BS, but the article made it sound like it was a real thing. And it wouldn't surprise me for this to become a peripheral, boxed in for collector's editions. But yeah, it lets you smell farts. So we'll see which way that goes. The next news piece has to do with Minecraft VR. And you guys clarified for me probably about 3 weeks ago the whole Minecraft, the one that I personally have tried on the HTC Vive, which I thought was awesome. And I'm not a Minecraft guy at all, but I spent hours just having fun tinkering. It was a really well done, seamless virtual reality experience. And if I was a big Minecraft person that I'm not saying I might not find more enjoyment in the game, I just haven't been to date, is if you are, that represents hundreds of virtual reality hours, right? That's some serious staying power to have a game that can deliver that much ongoing replayability. So where I'm interested though is where, now this is for the Rift, but the version I have works on the Rift and the Vive. I just happen to play it on the Vive more because of the room VR aspect. But what will be neat to do is to compare the modded version, a la Minecraft, right, with this official one. I am really curious because it's going to beg the question. Look, if the DLC version is superior, and this thing was done, I think, in weeks, maybe it took longer, but it seemed to be right there around launch. So yeah, maybe they could have been working on a dev unit, who knows, right? But it was launched quickly and it didn't have a lot of bugs. This thing is surprisingly stable. And again, that's when I tried it. Admittedly, I was a little bit late to that race, but it handled well, it controlled well. So look for a video. I'm going to do a video directly comparing the two. Now, it's not going to be Minecraft centric in the way that I'm going to know what the hell I'm talking about with Minecraft, but I will try to focus on the differences as I see them, right? And the experience in general, smoothness, latency. How does all of that come into effect? So looking forward to that. And the next article, and there's two that tie in together that I want to talk about, have to do with virtual reality roller coasters. And the first one, and this is an article from TechCrunch website. This is one from Wesh.com. It has to do with Halloween Horror Nights. That's a Universal ride. And what they're doing is they're adding kind of an upgrade to that. So it's a $49 in addition to the ticket price for the normal experience, right? And this is all in Universal Orlando. You get to travel into, it's kind of a warehouse space and it's filled with all kinds of artifacts. You get to interact with those artifacts and you get transported to different planes. And the way they word it, I'm just trying to find it here, is paranormal realms. So whatever that means, right? Psychedelic worlds, maybe horror places, really cool tech realms, who knows? But it sounds intriguing. $49 is pretty steep, and they made no mention of the length of the ride. So if anybody has been to that one, the Orlando one, the Halloween Horror Nights, let me know. I'm curious. Because then we can kind of see, okay, is that worth the $50? I'd probably do it, just being honest, just for the experience alone. Doesn't mean I'll repeat it, but I'd probably at least want to try it once. The next ride is a Six Flags one, and a couple of you mentioned this, and I thought it was just a really awesome idea. Now, the two of you who mentioned it were talking about a different roller coaster, I believe, but this has to do with a Six Flags, which I believe is in California. Yeah, it's in California. Roller coaster that adds a whole new twist to the VR thing. It's essentially a roller coaster ride, and it's called the Demon. This thing's been around for 36 years. In my research, I think they said it was one of the first ones to have a corkscrew. So it was very innovative at the time. And we had Expo 86 here in Vancouver. We had our own form of that. I can't remember what the name was. Scream Machine? Yeah, Scream Machine. That's what it was. And it was basically similar, right? Probably a little smaller on scale. But anyways, this Demon one has a virtual reality component to it. So instead of seeing the scenery at Six Flags, which, let's face it, anybody who's been there has probably experienced themselves when they were young with their kids, and hell, maybe even with their grandkids, they're coming back. So this is really cool for those people who've never experienced it before. And they didn't specify in the article if you're given a choice. Is it you have to have the VR helmet on? I imagine it wouldn't be, right? Because you would want people who've never done the ride to see what the ride is like itself before maybe doing a VR version. But for those doing the VR version, it's essentially a Samsung Gear, right? So they're strapped in with this, and it's a game. It's called Rage of the Gargoyles. So you're basically playing a game, rail-based, obviously, and talk about the ultimate in feedback, right? You've got an actual roller coaster. There's no vibrating chair, no booming system, that you're going to plant under yourself, or any kind of a crazy device that's going to come close to this, because it's the real deal, an actual roller coaster. Personally, I think that's super innovative, super cool, and there are so many roller coasters in not just the States, but in Canada, hell, in Europe and Asia as well, to add that type of functionality, right? There's one, is it in Dubai? I think it's like on some skyscraper, way too high up. For me, Vegas has one too. Scare the crap out of me. I'd never get on that thing. Well, I probably would, but you get my point. Scary as hell. All of those are ripe for the picking for a VR integrated experience. So I thought that was really cool. Anyways, guys, that wraps up for the news for Friday. Hope you guys have a awesome one. Get some good VR gaming in. For those of you still waiting for your units, hopefully they come soon, or you make the plunge soon. As always, guys, cheers, and see you on the flip side.